Hi everyone, Zachary Lui here from Marshal Qi Gong and Wujixuan Life Wellness. So today we had a question from Sam about what is Qi, what are Meridians, how, why we should engage these. Well, that's a complicated question. So let's start off at the beginning of Qi. Qi, when we look at the character, is steam on top of rice. So when we really look at it, that tells us the basic functions of how Qi is even formed. Breathing and eating. Without either one, you're not alive, nor is there Qigong. So when we look at the character more elaborately though, we see that there's 3 layers to the character. One being the rice radical, one being the air radical, one being flow or clouds. So when we look into that, this is to connotate the different levels of heaven, man, and earth, traditionally written. So looking at it from that point of view, when we're doing anything with Qi, it will embrace all 3 aspects. You have that heavenly aspect, that earthly aspect, and then that man aspect. So this gets very specific in terms of, well, what is Qi then? Well, Qi is everything. Everything under heaven, everything on earth, and all the creatures around it being what we would refer to as man, but that can refer to any animal or living creatures also. So this table under the computer, it's full of Qi. This camera, the colors, they're Qi too. My voice, you breathing right now, you watching this camera, that's Qi. So when we start working with Qi in a Qigong context, we're connecting to the life force that is around us. Because remember, fundamentally, from a Qigong perspective, you cannot separate yourself out from the environment. So the more you can work with yourself, the more you can be in touch with your environment. This is symbiotic relationship then. Within that whole context now, that's where the Qigong really starts to play up on things. I know a lot of people talk about forms. The forms is just the first step. Have you considered the environment around you? Because that will affect it. So that talks about Qi. Meridians, what are Meridians? I have a video, which I'm going to link below. However, Meridians, in a nutshell, are all about those pathways of Qi that flow in the body. There's 12 of them, and from there you can go into something called the 8 extraordinary channels, which are the C's of Qi at that point. And with them, all of them have their different understandings, their different functions of the body. They all do different things. Regardless though of how you want to look at these rivers of Qi in the body, you could also break it down further into the Dantians, which is another reservoir of Qi. So all in all, the human body has more or less at least 3 C's of Qi, 8 rivers, or at least we can say collaterals of Qi, and then you have 12 streams of Qi. From there, we can play around quite a bit, but at the end of the day, the human body from a Chinese context is a map of China. So when we look at this historically, there's some mountains, there's the rivers, there's the flows, and with that, Qi is not separated from those. Qi is the water within those streams, rivers, or seas. So why should we engage Qi in the first place? Well, first off, if you want to live, you have to engage Qi. It's that simple. You have to eat, you have to breathe. Without either one, you can go with one or the other depending how you want to do things, but typically from a Qigong standard, we want to maximize things. So we want to be working on the premise of how to maximize the efficiency of Qi flow. We want to work on how to increase the flow. We want to get more in touch with the flow outside of ourselves, because us by ourselves with all our crap, being the emotions, past traumas, even physical conditioning on things, those all impede the flow. So when we start working with Qi with the intention and Qigong, we start unimpeding the flows, we start flowing everything. So the natural process of that is better health, vitality, spiritual clarity, depending which paradigm or perspective you take on that, and martial ability. As of to how we engage it now, well, it depends on the forms you're doing, and this goes back to what is your intention at the end of the day. I could sit down and breathe, and that is a form of Qigong. Is it the most effective way of Qigong? Probably not, unless you've really trained it. At that point, you could do a full sitting, breathing form of Qigong. And there are quite a bit of Qigongs, but if you're naturally just breathing and you weren't trained, probably not the most effective thing you could do. It gets you to survival level, but doesn't get you up to the higher levels of perception within yourself. So with Qigong, it's about maximizing things, and the how goes into what's your goals. So for spiritual Qigong, you're really looking at, well, how do you become spiritually enlightened, or more in the environment, or more connected to the environment, or more socially connected, or more in touch with your emotions. Spiritual Qigong is a big umbrella. Generally in Chinese context, it goes into Buddhism, Taoism, or Confucianism. There are other sects such as shamanic Qigongs and things like that, but we're not going to get into that too much today. As with going into the specifics of that, well, alright, let's dig into Buddhism a bit. Buddhism really focuses on this clarity of the mind, so most of your Qigongs from that perspective now are going to focus on clarity of mind and how you build that up. From a Taoist perspective, it's how do you flow with the environment? How do you get a stronger body? Because their focus, at least a good sect of them, or a good size of them, were really focused on immortality, physical immortality actually. So it was about taking care of the body, how to maximize the health. But then we can go into this more inner alchemy side, which was more about the spiritual enlightenment and immortalizing your own spirit. So there's Qigongs around that. And then you have the Confucian Qigongs, which is how do you interact with people better? How do you interact with your family better? How do you interact with your emotions and your psychology better? So those are nutshells of those spiritual traditions. The shamanic ones, it really depends on which shamanic tradition you're talking about, but it's more about being in touch with the environment, generally speaking. Now, there's Marshal Qi Gong, and there's different sects of Marshal Qi Gong. So with that, but that stated, it's all about, well, martial ability. How are you going to defend yourself? Is it through brute will and strength, the Li side of things, the outer working, or are you going to do more of this inner working of Qigong? Because we could say Shaolin Kung Fu focuses on this exterior side, the muscle, the tendons, get the blood flowing, get the Qi flowing. If you get hit or stabbed with a sharp metal object, how do you get the Qi there to protect your skin so you don't get hurt? That is a stereotypical way of looking at Shaolin Kung Fu, at least some forms of its Qigong. Then you have Tai Chi, which is a lot more gentle. It's building up this Qi, and how do you bounce things off of you? How do you accept things and maximize the effect? That's a very different type of Qigong now, both having a martial purpose at the end of the day. Finally, you have wellness Qigong or medical Qigong. Pretty self-evident what the effects are for that. You either want vitality and health, which is more energy, better working joints, better working body, better working whatever effects you want the body to have at that point. But generally, from a wellness perspective, it's about health. And then with medical, it's what medical issues do you have. That's a very different type of training when you go into medical Qigong. Medical Qigong, I could use Fa Qi, which is about pulling the ailments out of you and putting good Qi into you. Or I could teach you how to do certain breaths, certain forms to augment whatever illnesses you have. So eventually you don't need to take medication, but you just need to do the medical Qigong form, which will either help the medication or take you off the medication completely, depending on your ailment. So those are the different reasons on the why you would do it and how you would do it, because the hows are the forms. The whys are actually opening the book to understanding what needs to be done depending on your goals. So I wouldn't open a book on Shakespeare unless I'm really wanting to either get a certain poetic view of things, a certain understanding of what that play was, or I just want to go into a high English type work, but I'm not going to use Shakespeare and compare that to a modern book, for example. There's very different context, varying context is why we would go to each one. So you just need to understand the reasoning behind it. And at the end of the day, with all of this, it comes down to what's your intention, because the intention will lead the Qi. So with that said, if you enjoy these videos, do subscribe to the channel below. For more Qigong, particularly, go to Qigong.ca. And then for general services, just go to Wujixuan.org or .ca. And I'll see you around. Also, if you do have any questions, feel free to email me at Zach@ZacharyLui.ca. I am looking for more questions, so just shoot me a note in the comment section below, or just send me a direct email. Till then.